Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Watch my video and subscribe my channel. Brooke Logan Forrester had been many things over the decades. Lover, fighter, survivor, and above all, the eternal glue that often held the Forrester family's shattered pieces together. But nothing prepared her for the sinister secret she stumbled upon during her unexpected trip to France. A trip that was supposed to be about closing a fashion deal and strengthening the Forrester Creations' European branch, but ended up pulling her into a dark abyss of deception. Betrayal it all started. Innocently enough, with Paris being sent to France on a special liaison mission to oversee a high-profile Forrester fashion showcase at the Parisian flagship store, and Thomas following shortly after to support her and fine-tune some of his latest designs for Europe. For months, rumors circulated about Thomas and Paris's tension, fueled by whispers that she had been pressuring him to make their so-called relationship official while he still harbored deep, unresolved obsessions with Hope Logan, the woman he once manipulated into a near marriage and whose forgiveness he was still desperate to earn. Brooke had boarded the Forrester jet oblivious of the impending storm, thinking only of reconciling with Ridge, smoothing over their latest squabble, and perhaps indulging in some Parisian wine along the Seine. But the cosmos had different plans for her. On the second night of her stay, while Ridge entertained business guests at a lavish rooftop soiree, Brooke wandered the quiet corridors of the hotel's service wing in search of her misplaced phone when she overheard a heated conversation in a dimly lit side room, a voice that unmistakably belonged to Thomas, strained and agitated, and another, trembling and defiant, Paris Buckingham. "You can't keep doing this, Thomas!" Paris had whispered fiercely, her words sharp as broken glass. "You think you can erase your mistakes by controlling everyone around you, but I'm not Hope, and I won't be your pawn." Brooke froze, her breath catching as the sound of a struggle followed. An abrupt crash, a stifled scream, and then silence so thick it seemed to choke the air. Panic spurred her feet forward. But by the time she pushed open the door, the room was empty save for an overturned chair and a faint trace of Paris' silk scarf trapped on the edge of a smashed vase. Hours later, Paris was reported missing, and the French authorities launched a discreet but determined investigation, initially treating it as a disappearance possibly linked to Paris's bustling nightlife. But Brooke couldn't shake the icy dread curling in her gut, or the haunting image of Thomas emerging from that same corridor later that night, his hands trembling slightly, his jaw set in a grim line as if he were suppressing a storm inside. Days passed and Forrester Creations tried to carry on as usual, issuing polite statements about Paris's unexpected leave of absence. But Brooke's instincts, honed by years of navigating lies, affairs, and betrayals, told her something far darker lurked beneath the elegant surface. She began following Paris' last known steps, quietly interviewing hotel staff, and eventually paying a reluctant bellboy who confessed that Thomas had asked access to the restricted lower terrace by the river on the same night Paris vanished. Brooke ventured there alone one misty evening, her heels clicking on the cobblestones until she reached the ivy-clad railing where the Seine whispered secrets to the moonlit sky, and there, half buried beneath damp leaves, she found it, Paris Buckingham's bracelet, the very one Zend had gifted her before she left Los Angeles. Now bent, that discovery was the first crack in the dam, and when Brooke confronted Thomas the next morning, his reaction confirmed everything. His face drained of color, his words stumbled over hollow justifications about an argument gone wrong, about Paris threatening to expose something from his past that would ruin him forever, about a shove that wasn't meant to kill but sent her tumbling against the jagged stone edge of the terrace, her screams swallowed by the roaring river. He had panicked, he revealed in a hoarse whisper, and tried to save her, but the current was too strong, and by the time he climbed down, she was vanished, her lively laughter muffled beneath the frigid French waters. Brooke staggered back, the weight of his confession pressing like iron on her chest, torn between her horror at the act and her long-ingrained instinct to protect the Forrester name for Ridge's sake, knowing that if this truth came to light, it would not only destroy Thomas's life, but also fracture Ridge beyond repair. reignite the Logan Forrester War, and send ripples through the entire fashion empire they had built. She spent sleepless nights in her Parisian suite, staring at the glittering Eiffel Tower, battling with her conscience. Should she contact the cops, warn Hope, or tell Ridge about the monster his son had become? Every option felt like a betrayal of someone she loved. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, reports of Paris' disappearance reached Zend, who became panicked, contacting Brooke continuously, unknowing she was carrying a secret that may fracture lives. The French authorities discovered a body fragment weeks later, confirming Paris' tragic fate, and the media spun it as a tragic accident, an unfortunate fall during a late-night stroll. But Brooke knew the truth, for Thomas had poured it out in a moment of desperate vulnerability, begging her to keep it between them, swearing he would atone by devoting his life to being a better father to Douglas and a better man to Hope if she kept his secret. Brooke returned to Los Angeles with a troubled expression in her eyes, avoiding Ridge's sympathetic questions and hiding her anguish with fake smiles. But the guilt festered like a wound beneath silk. She saw Thomas charm the family, Hope defend him against lingering naysayers, Ridge swell with pride at his son's seeming restoration, and the ghost of Paris Buckingham lurked in the shadows of her thoughts, whispering for justice. According to the bold and the beautiful spoilers, Brooke's unexpected discovery in France has set off a sequence of events that will put her loyalty, love for Ridge, and moral compass to the test like never before. Will she eventually expose Thomas, risking breaking apart the Forresters, or will she bear this burden until it consumes her? With Zend closing in, Hope noticing Brooke's unease, and the Parisian investigation reopening due to an anonymous tip, one Brooke suspects came from a remorseful hotel employee who saw Thomas that night. The truth threatens to erupt at the worst possible time, during the upcoming Forrester Fashion Gala in Los Angeles, where Ridge plans to honor Paris's memory with a tribute that, unbeknownst to him, may also be the night his son is exposed as her killer. As the walls close in, Brooke's every glance at Thomas is laced with the weight of that French night, the scarf, the bracelet, the confession, leaving viewers of the bold and the beautiful to wonder, when the truth finally bursts out, who will pay the ultimate price? Will Ridge support his son or the lady he loves? Will Hope recoil in fear at the guy she once regarded as her creative partner? And will Brooke, perpetually caught between protecting the Forresters and telling the truth, become the unintentional architect of Thomas Forrester's demise? The days after Brooke returned to Los Angeles were a waking nightmare wrapped in designer fabrics and champagne smiles, with every clink of a glass at the Forrester mansion ringing like a funeral bell in her conscience, as she silently carried the unbearable truth of what Thomas had confessed that fateful night in France. She moved through the familiar corridors of the Forrester estate like a ghost, her trademark confidence dimmed, her laughter a brittle veneer that fooled almost everyone, except Hope Logan, who noticed the subtle tremor in her mother's voice when Thomas entered the room, and Brooke's gaze lingering too long on the man once hailed as redeemed. Thomas, for his part, acted as if nothing had happened, devoting himself to his work at Forrester Creations, sketching daring new lines, charming the press with his newfound maturity, and lavishing Douglas with care as if compensating for the weight of the life he had chosen. Brooke watched it all, her mind replaying Paris Buckingham's vibrant smile, the way she had championed Forrester's philanthropic projects, the sparkle in her eyes whenever Zend was nearby, and the cold, lifeless bracelet she had discovered by the riverbank, which now burned a hole in her jewelry box back home. Each night, she debated calling the French authorities to confess what she knew, but then she saw Ridge's proud eyes when he spoke of his son's alleged transformation, or heard Douglas giggling as Thomas read him bedtime stories, and her resolve wavered, her heart torn between justice for Paris and protection for a fractured family held together by threads of hope and denial. The bold and the beautiful spoilers suggest that Brooke's internal conflict will not remain hidden for long. Already, whispers have reached Zend, who returned from a European trip demanding answers about Paris' mysterious death, his grief turning to suspicion when he discovered Thomas had been with her in France just before her disappearance. Zend accosted Brooke in the Forrester office one rainy afternoon, his voice low but angry, asking, "You know something, don't you? You were there. What happened to Brooke?" Her lips parted, but no words came out, only a tear that slipped down her cheek before she quickly wiped it away, blaming jet lag and paperwork weariness. However, her reaction just fueled Zend's determination, sending him on a collision course with Thomas that promises to detonate in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, Hope Logan became increasingly concerned, seeing not only her mother's unease, but also Thomas's sudden overprotectiveness, his subtle attempts to deflect conversations away from Paris, and his outburst when he saw Hope going through a stack of old Parisian photos left on his desk. Ridge, ever the conflicted patriarch, remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath his roof, planning a lavish memorial fashion gala in Paris' honor, an event meant to heal wounds but destined to rip them open instead, because Brooke knew the ghosts of that French night would not remain silent amidst the bright lights and cameras. The guilt gnawed at her like a persistent moth in silk, whispering in her ear when she tried to sleep beside Ridge, haunting her reflection in every boutique window along Rodeo Drive, reminding her that by protecting Thomas, she was betraying the very values she claimed to stand for: honesty, family, and justice. The tipping point came one evening when she overheard Douglas innocently telling Hope that his father had nightmares about a lady by the water and sometimes cried when he thought no one was looking. The child's innocent words pierced Brooke like a dagger, and she realized the secret was not only rotting her soul, but also poisoning Thomas's attempts at redemption, leaving him a prisoner of his own guilt. In a moment of desperation, Brooke confided in Katie, her sister, and frequently her conscience, telling the whole story over a bottle of wine in the Logan cabin. Katie's eyes widened in surprise, then hardened with rage, not just at Thomas, but also at Brooke's quiet. "You can't hold this inside, Brooke. Paris needs justice. Zend deserves the truth. And Ridge, he deserves to know what kind of man his son truly is." But Brooke, divided between loyalty and morality, urged her sister to keep quiet for a little longer, to allow her time to figure out a solution that wouldn't kill everyone. Katie grudgingly agreed, but her commitment came with a warning. Secrets like these had a habit of erupting on their own, often with disastrous repercussions. And indeed, disaster drew closer by the day, as French investigators reopened the case after receiving an anonymous tip containing a blurry photo of Thomas and Paris arguing on the terrace the night she vanished. A photo Brooke recognized instantly, as it was taken from the same hallway where she had stood frozen. When Thomas discovered the investigation was active again, he became unpredictable, shouting at Hope, canceling design meetings, and even approaching Brooke in private with a terrifying edge to his voice. "You didn't say anything, did you? Because if you do, Brooke, you're not just endangering me. You're endangering the entire family." The veiled threat sent shivers down her spine, reminding her that the Thomas she had once forgiven could still carry the same darkness that led to Emma's crash years ago and now Paris' fatal fall. The bold and the beautiful spoilers hint that this subplot will spiral even deeper when the memorial gala collides with the revived investigation, forcing Brooke to choose between her love for Ridge and her devotion to the truth. Consider the scene: Paris's smiling face emblazoned onto the Forrester runway backdrop, Zend giving a trembling tribute, Hope gripping Douglas's hand, and French cops waiting in the wings with a warrant. Will Brooke eventually come forward, her voice breaking as she discloses the jewelry, scarf, and confession? Or will Thomas, cornered and desperate, take matters into his own hands to end her silence for good? Fans know Brooke is no stranger to risk, but this time the stakes are bigger than any affair or fashion rivalry. It's about a life lost, a secret buried in the chilly waters of the Seine, and a legacy that might die along with it. In the end, Brooke's unexpected discovery in France has become a ticking time bomb beneath the gleaming floors of Forrester Creations, threatening not just Thomas's delicate redemption arc, but also the Logans' and Forrester's fundamental basis of trust. Ridge will be forced to face the awful truth. While he was busy planning futures and fashion lines, his kid was unraveling in the background. And the issue that will torment Brooke long after the truth is revealed is this: was her silence an act of love or the ultimate betrayal? As the days turned to nights under the golden glow of the Los Angeles cityscape, Brooke Logan found herself on the verge of revelation and destruction. The weight of Thomas Forrester's confession gnawing at her very core, like an unyielding parasite feasting on her guilt. The memorial gala for Paris Buckingham loomed ever closer, a glittering event draped in silk and sorrow, and each preparation meeting at Forrester Creations tightened the vice around Brooke's chest, for she knew the smiling tributes, the glossy press releases, the champagne toasts would all be staged atop a foundation of lies, a masquerade concealing the truth that the man designing the very collection to honor Paris' legacy was, in fact, the architect of her death. Thomas worked frantically, his sketches becoming increasingly erratic, his rage flashing in private while portraying himself as a dedicated parent and redeemed artist publicly. Hope, caught between admiration and apprehension, began to notice cracks in his demeanor, late-night phone calls made outside the cabin, muttered words about evidence and secrets, and an almost obsessive insistence that she accompany him to Paris again after the gala, as if distance could bury his guilt beneath another continent's cobblestones. Brooke, ever vigilant, wrote her turmoil into half-finished letters that she never sent, one to the French authorities, another to Zend, and one to Ridge, the latter damaged with teardrops she assumed were spilled wine. Katie's warning rang out louder with each sleepless night. Secrets rot the soul, Brooke, and they always come out. Indeed, the first fissure widened when Zend returned with new information. A security guard from the Paris hotel had come forward with a statement describing a heated altercation between Thomas and Paris hours before her disappearance. Though the guard claimed he was threatened into silence by someone connected to the Forrester entourage, the details were too similar to the shattered parts Brooke already clutched in her quivering hands. The scarf, the bracelet, and the confession spoken like a curse in a poorly lighted corridor. Zend confronted Thomas during a design meeting, their voices clashing with genuine anguish and boiling rage. "Do you believe you can paint over blood with cloth, Thomas?" Zend hissed, his fists clenched, while Thomas shot back with cold precision, "Careful, cousin. You have no idea what you're accusing me of, and slander like that can destroy more than just reputations. It can destroy families." Brooke stood at the doorway, torn between entering and remaining silent, her nails digging crescents into her palms as she watched two men, one grieving, one guilty, circle each other like predators. According to the bold and the beautiful spoilers, this clash is simply the beginning of a powder keg that will explode on the gala night, where high fashion and concealed crime will share the catwalk. Meanwhile, Hope's curiosity grew into a quiet investigation. She followed Thomas one evening after he pretended to have a late meeting, leading him surreptitiously to a downtown storage unit where he removed a weathered box. Inside, beneath coils of fabric, she caught a glimpse of something silver glinting in the harsh fluorescent lights. Was it